Hey everybody, so I haven't done one of these in a while. This is an unboxing of a Shenzhen budget phone. So this is the Vernee M8 Pro. I believe it sells for about $200 or a little bit under 200. So we'll check the specs. It runs on a Helio P60 with a 6.2-inch display, 1080p resolution, 6 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, 4,100 milliamp hour battery. So at least in terms of specs, that's pretty respectable, especially for $200. This is hard, box so hard to take off. Okay, so put the phone to the side. It appears like this is a metal body device, not glass or plastic. So you have here a European plug, USB-C charging port, so that's good. Because the last couple of budget devices, not even budget, the last couple of mid-tier devices I tested, such as the Oppo F11 Pro and the Vivo V15 Pro, both of those phones use micro USB, and that's just very frustrating. You have a SIM ejector tool right here and a dongle for headphone jack. So you have right here papers, warranty, and a soft jelly case. And then it comes with a screen protector. Let's see. This is the soft screen protector. So now let's get to my favorite part of the phone, which is the peeling. There's already a screen protector applied too, so that means you get two basically. This one, gets messed up, you have a second one right there. That's it in terms of packaging. Very bare bones. So I will set up this phone, play around with it, and then I'll be back. Alright guys, I'm back with the Vernee M8 Pro. So I played this phone for the last 2 hours, and I am overall impressed with this phone. Relatively anyway. It's getting tougher and tougher for these really small, obscure Shenzhen brands such as like Vernee, Doogie, Liegu, Blueboo to really impress anymore, because you have big companies like Oppo that are releasing budget devices under sub-brands like Realme. So before the existence of Realme devices, something like this for like around 200 bucks, 190, I think it's definitely worth looking at. But now you have something like Realme, and it's just tough for these brands because Realme obviously has a lot more resources that goes into building software and camera algorithm, all that. But despite having said that, I think Vernee did a really good job anyway. This phone is definitely more polished than a lot of these other kind of really small time Shenzhen brands, like the ones I just mentioned, Liegu, Blueboo. Those phones usually they don't give you a lot of software adjustments, but conversely Vernee's software actually gives you a lot of changes, which I'll get into later. Let's talk about the hardware first. So you have a metal unibody back. Actually, this metal isn't as premium feeling as like the metal that used to be seen in iPhones or even like Umi Digi's phones. This is probably like a thinner aluminum. Still feels decent. It's a unibody design, meaning the back and the sides chassis are one piece. It's not like two different pieces. So on the bottom you have USB-C charging port. That's awesome. Please take note, Realme, Oppo, Vivo. And you have one single bottom fine speaker grill. The second set of grills here are fake. And I really like that on the right side of the device. It's basically completely smooth. It's clean. Now at the top you have a SIM card slot which can hold 2 SIM cards and a micro SD. So not all at the same time. You choose one SIM card and one micro SD, or just 2 SIM cards. You cannot put 2 SIM cards and a micro SD all at the same time. Now on the right side of the device you have these very clicky volume rockers and power button. I actually like it. It's very tactile, it's very sturdy, there's no wiggle room. So overall, this is a pretty firmly well built device. So you see there's a fingerprint scanner on the back, hardware scanner. It works fast and accurate, and even registering the fingerprint was so fast. It took like maybe 6 seconds, just like 6 or 7 taps, and I was able to register my fingerprint, and it's been unlocking every time, no issue. It's not like the fastest unlock, so you see between putting my finger on it, there's like a half a second wait, but not too bad. Now look at the cameras. You have a 16 megapixel main camera with a secondary depth sensor, and surprise, the secondary depth sensor actually seems to be legit. It actually does detect the subject from the background. I'll show you some samples later. And then around the front, you have a selfie camera that's 13 megapixel, and it's okay. Like, it tends to overexpose the light. So again, I'll show you photos later. So back to the software that I was talking about. So initially, when I got this device, I thought it was one of those other Chinese phones like Blueboo, Liegu, that really didn't give me much room for customization, and I was a little bit frustrated because there's no app tray, and the back button was on the right side of the phone. And if you go into settings, you can't really find these things easily. So I searched for like button to see if I can fix the buttons, and nothing pops up. I searched for navigation, and like nothing really pops up. Like, you have this right here, but this doesn't really let you change the order, and there was no option to have an app tray, change wallpaper, any of that. And I thought, wow, this phone really doesn't let you change anything. But turns out Vernee software does let you change these things. It's just they're kind of buried. It's very complicated. So for example, to change the order of the navigation buttons and to even add this little button to hide the nav bar, you have to go into settings, and it's buried under display. From here, it's not even just in the first page of display. You have to tap into advanced, and then down here you finally see the options to change either left or right, and to hide the navigation keys. And then on top of that, you see that right now this phone has a notch, but it's not showing. That's because the Vernee MA Pro actually gives you an option to hide the notch. This might be the first really budget device from these smaller brands I've seen that give you the option to do that. So to do this, you jump into display, advanced again, and then you come here, you see status bar display. So there's a little bit of Chinglish in the menu. You see status bar, it's connected to one word. That's a typo, grammar mistake. So you go here, and you're able to either turn off or on the notch. So that's pretty nice for them to offer that to you on a budget device. Although I find that even with the notch on or off, it doesn't matter in a lot of apps, because if you go into something like Instagram stories, it cuts off at the top anyway, even with the notch display on. So it's not like you're really ever getting stuff up here that displays up here anyway. I think the only time you see it is when you go into a photo and you zoom the photo. Nope, even in photos, see, there's a black bar that cuts off the image. So it's almost like the only difference it makes between not having the notch or having the notch is on the home screen, because otherwise, even no matter what app you're in, it gets cut off at the top anyway. So there are a lot of these customization options buried within the phone's software. So if you long press on the home screen, you go into launcher settings, you'll be able to set gestures such as double tap, swipe up, swipe down. Unfortunately, I don't think you can double tap on the screen to lock the display, but you can double tap to launch apps. So I can set maps, and now if I double tap, it should launch maps automatically. So this could be pretty useful. I think if you have an app that you use a lot, like maybe WhatsApp or WeChat or Camera or Instagram or something, you can set it so it jumps straight into the app. So let's see, anytime I swipe up, it will go into maybe phone dialer. So now if I swipe up, it will go straight into phone dialer. And see, the animation looks pretty clean, pretty smooth too. Double tap to open maps, swipe up to open phone dialer. And now jumping back into the launcher settings, if you go into appearance, you can even choose to have an app tray, which I didn't think was possible before. So again, this is a nice option to have. Now this display panel is a 1080p LCD panel, and I quite like it. It's pretty good. Colors are a little bit warm as usual with these budget devices, so there's a little bit of an orange tint, as you can see from like my friend's face here. He's not usually that orange. He's not Donald Trump, but you know, not much to complain about for a $200 device. Now I do find that the max brightness, it's not good. So when you're using this phone under heavy direct sunlight, I had a lot of trouble seeing the screen. As you can see here, it's very faint, but I think this is a problem that you'll get with just about any phone under $200. Even when you get the Realme, you're gonna have the same problem. You probably need to pay over $400 or more if you want a screen that's completely usable under the sun. Now this is under extreme, scenario. This is the sun shining directly on the display. Anytime you're under a shade or indoors, I think I have no problems with this display. This is it's not like the most crisp, stunning panel ever, but not bad at all. Viewing angles is also solid. There's not much color shifting even when you tilt the phone all the way almost like 90 degrees. Now in terms of performance, this phone runs on a Helio M60 with 6 gigs of RAM, so performance is about on par with all these other $200 to $300 phones. I have not encountered any issues yet. Now granted, I've only been using it for 2 hours. Now when you're playing a graphically intensive game like Hero Hunter, you see that the Helio P60 here is handling everything just fine. So we'll check out the graphics settings right now. I have this on high, and everything's running smooth, and I played this up to like 20 minutes, didn't encounter any issues. But now if you change settings to ultra, now you see that frame rate drops a lot. Now it becomes kinda unplayable. Now you see, now it's very choppy, the graphics. But just go back to high. You go back to high, you get a smooth frame rate. So let's jump into the camera app really quick. I find the camera app relatively well designed. So it's a swipe heavy interface that you swipe left and right between all the modes. You do get a pro mode that actually works. You can actually adjust white balance and ISO, all that, and you'll see the difference in real life. Whereas some other budget phones, the pro mode is almost like fake. They have it, but then you can't really change anything on it. And you have a panorama mode, which it's okay. It's a little bit tough to use, but the stitching looks respectable. And now you have a beauty mode that's really intense, as usual with Chinese phones. So you see that my skin right now will change from really mushy, like almost fake, looking fake, to having all my wrinkles and like acne scars on display just by sliding this beauty bar back and forth. It's pretty hardcore. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this phone has a secondary depth sensor that actually seems to work. I say that because I took a couple of bokeh shots with my usual test subject Groot, and it actually turned out pretty nice. Like you see edge detection right here, it's relatively on point. And when you're taking the bokeh image, you are able to choose aperture in real time. So you can choose if something is more in focus or not. I'm also impressed with this phone's autofocus. Now, it's obviously not as fast as something like a Samsung or Huawei phone or Apple phone, but for a budget device, I think this camera right now, it's auto-focusing pretty fast. It's able to tell whenever my hand jumps into frame, and then whenever my hand's out and it needs to focus on something like 2 feet back. Now let's look at some photo samples. I think during the day, you're going to be relatively pleased. Overall sharpness and clarity, it's on point. And dynamic range right here, it's pretty good too. Although I gotta say, for dynamic range, the camera does take like 2 or 3 seconds before it can find that proper balance. So if you're shooting something that in the shade and all of a sudden you take the phone out to the sun, it will take like 2 seconds before the camera can adjust. But once it does, dynamic range, I think it's pretty good. So here are more photo samples right here. Like again, you see shutter speed is relatively fast. These vehicles here are moving at relatively high speed, but they're not blurry. And overall details, I mean, the image is a little bit dark right here, but overall details, it's pretty good. Contrast is on point. It's not like overly saturated. Now you can zoom in the viewfinder if you pinch, but then when you do that, it's completely digital zoom. As you see here, the photo quality loses a lot of details and just looks very noisy, but it's something it's good to have if you need to zoom in a pinch, pun intended. So now we'll check out some video samples. This phone can only record up to 1080p 30 frames per second. You see the mic is pretty bad. There's a little bit of major distortion in the sound. The zoom quality is okay, but dynamic range here is good, and colors is good too. Very jerky video though. So we'll check out a selfie video. I think the selfie video is a little bit lacking.
Selfie camera with the Vernee MA Pro. I think
The crop is a little bit tight for my liking. I prefer a wider field of vision. But yeah, I think dynamic range is struggling a little bit, you see, yeah. And I don't know if you can hear me with all the jackhammer sounds, but you know, Hong Kong's is loud as hell like that. So you see selfie video, dynamic range is not that good. As you see at the sky, it's completely blown out up to the top. And the mic, my sound comes out very, very flat. But again, I guess for $200 device, you can't really complain. But the mic on this phone, it's not good. So speaking of videos, you know what we gotta do? We gotta do a video speaker test. So as I mentioned, this phone has a single bottom fine speaker, so it's very easily muffled. So you see, completely muffled. So there's about 70% volume right now. We'll go up to max volume. So not bad. Max volume is a little bit low, but at least there's no distortion. And even though you can muffle the speaker very easily, when you do leave the speaker unobstructed, the sound do come out pretty clean. So now battery life. Obviously, this phone has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, so it should be able to last you all day. Now I've only tested for 2 hours myself, so I can't vouch for that yet. I will test it more later and maybe add it to the comments, because I don't think I'll be making an additional video for this phone. So you know, overall there's a lot to like with this phone. You have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, an accurate fingerprint reader that's not the fastest but not slow by any means. It's accurate at least. The display looks pretty solid, and I like the look and feel of the phone. The unibody aluminum design, it's pretty nice. And then you have USB-C port and decent speakers and camera that's solid. So that's it for now. This is the Vernee M8 Pro. I will be back with more videos on other phones in the next couple of days, and I will be going to Paris this weekend to check out the Huawei P30. So if you're interested in information on the Huawei P30, please subscribe to my channel. I'll have one of the first videos out on March 26th. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.